Programs coming from the Vatican and ready for broadcast are distributed among a complex system of short and medium wave transmitters and directional antennas. The most powerful transmitters, from 500 to 250 kilowatts, are connected to two rotating antennas. The largest of these looks like two 105-meter-high Eiffel Towers balanced on an 87-meter diameter monorail. Weighing over 650 tons, it takes 6 minutes to complete a 360-degree turn. Shortwave broadcasts are important in order to reach vast areas of the globe where there is simply no alternative. Medium wave broadcasts are still widely used within Europe. 5 100-kilowatt transmitters send a signal to 28 fixed but variously oriented antennas and to a periodic rotating logarithmic antenna. Experiments in digital broadcasting technology are well advanced. So-called DRM promises to guarantee better audio quality at lower energy cost. Pope John XXIII died on June 3, 1963. His successor, Pope Paul VI, showed special affection for Vatican Radio by coming to visit its offices on June 27, 1963, only 4 days after his election to the papacy. He was at the transmission center of Santa Maria di Galeria in 1966 when he spoke about the importance of developing quality programming.
Il settore dei programmi.
The programming sector. This is the most important sector in the work of the radio. This is its purpose, what it's used for, what makes it effective. What's the point of having a magnificent instrument if you don't know how to use it magnificently?
The phenomenon of papal trips abroad began with Pope Paul VI. His visit to the Holy Land and his address to the United Nations in New York are part of history. Vatican Radio, too, ventured outside the confines of Rome to follow the Pope and to ensure that his message of peace and understanding reached the furthest ends of the earth. Expansion in the programming sector and the relative increase in personnel meant that, once again, Vatican Radio was bursting at the seams. In 1970, it moved to its present headquarters in a building called Palazzo Pio, situated at the lower end of the Via della Conciliazione and in front of the Castel Sant'Angelo. Here, modern studios were built and production facilities were organized to cope with daily programming in 32 different languages.
Se me l'avessero detto, avrei studiato di più, mi sarei preparato. Adesso invece sono vecchio, non c'è tempo.
1978, the year of 3 popes. The death of Paul VI in August of that year was followed by the 33-day pontificate of Albino Luciani, Pope John Paul I. Then the surprise election of the first non-Italian in 455 years, Karol Wojtyła, Pope John Paul II. His pontificate marked the time of greatest change and of challenge for the Pope's radio. Called to follow John Paul II on his 146 apostolic trips around Italy and on his 104 voyages around the world, Vatican Radio discovered talents and resources it hadn't known it possessed. But the world was changing too. In 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. New balances of power and moral orders began to take shape. Vatican Radio was being challenged to speak with a voice that was clear, coherent, and credible. John Paul II showed his appreciation for the work of the radio when he visited the production center at Palazzo Pio at the start of his pontificate. But his meeting with staff members and their families on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of the transmission center was especially moving.
Voglio ringraziare tutti I presenti per la partecipazione.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and I'd also like to tell Vatican Radio that I'm sorry it took me so long to get to Santa Maria di Galeria after 12, almost 13 years of pontificate, even though I'm younger than my predecessors were.
Essendo più giovane dai miei predecessori.
They may have been older, but they were certainly sharper. They were more interested in modern technology and in Vatican Radio. So I need to make my own small examination of conscience.
Per la tecnica moderna, per la Radio Vaticana, è un piccolo esame di coscienza che devo fare anche io.
Meanwhile, modern technology was moving ahead by leaps and bounds. Computers were leaving typewriters behind, and digital systems were rapidly replacing all things analogical. Reel-to-reel tape recorders disappeared from studios as the information technology revolution took hold.
सम्मेलन में भाग ले रहे कैथलिक दंपतियों ने सोमवार को संत पापा जॉन पॉल द्वितीय का साक्षात्कार